Four Knights of the Apocalypse Chapter 215 is officially out, and this chapter was a really good one. I actually think I liked it more than the last couple of chapters that we've gotten since the return to Leonis. Better than the relationship stuff, better than, Meliodas and his whole thing with the next generation and going to train Tristan, though that is part of this chapter. We got some expansions on different abilities and powers for this series, expanding more on what is basically more or less a somewhat basic power system, and expanding it a bit more in ways that make sense, while also teasing us with Gawain learning the truth of who she comes from and her origins, and that really makes me happy, because that's something that we've been teased since the reveal of who her parents were back in the previous arc. So yeah, we're finally going to get to that. But before we jump into this chapter, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to see more of me, I actually have a manga podcast called Shonen Pulse over on the Panel Focus YouTube channel, where me, Nox, Yatsugami, and Papa Traffy talk about 9 manga from 3 different magazines. It's a lot of fun. We get real in-depth with these discussions, and I really do think you guys would enjoy the conversation, and perhaps maybe even find a series that you might want to jump in based on how we talk about it. I also have a second channel called GW Comics if you're interested in comic books, where I talk about comic books. I got some stuff planned for that by the end of the year, going into next year, so look forward to that. It is a passion project for me personally, and I would really appreciate you guys go and check it out whenever you get the chance. Link to my podcast and my second channel will be in the description down below. Now then, let's get on to this chapter. Chapter 215 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Parental Affection Awkwardly Provided. And that does kind of describe this chapter pretty perfectly, as we take a look at the cover image, which is the hole that Tristan and Meliodas are training in, as we see the obvious explosions from the debris of this training with their fight. As we cut to Meliodas and Tristan clashing swords, with Tristan obviously on the back foot and being pushed back by Meliodas. Tristan tries to throw a dark hail at him, but Meliodas obviously throws a full counter and hits Tristan back with double the force, laying him on the ground. Tristan gets back up, grasping his sword still in demon mode, with Meliodas telling Tristan to take a break, with Tristan refusing at first, but Meliodas says not to push himself as he's really out of breath right now. And so Tristan takes the advice and just lets out a breath and just relaxes for a second there. As Tristan asks why his dad isn't even panting right now, with Meliodas saying, "I'm not young, don't want to move around too much," which is hilarious from someone like Meliodas, considering the fact that he looks as young as ever, even though he's well over 3,000 years old due to a multitude of different circumstances. I just find when characters that don't look that old and are super strong just be like, well, I don't want to do stuff like this too often, otherwise I'm gonna be really sore. I'm not as young as I used to be. I always find stuff like that funny, especially in anime and manga. Now, Tristan pounds the floor in frustration, says that he can't even bow before Lancelot, much less stand alongside him, showing just how far below his power he really is. But Meliodas says not to panic, as he is on the right track of using his powers, as Tristan thinks that this is pity, considering the fact that Meliodas didn't even use his demon force. But Meliodas says, "What do you mean? I've been using that power the entire fight," which catches Tristan off guard, as we get a nice panel of Meliodas with a demonic-looking aura around him to represent his demon powers, or I guess demon-esque form, if we want to go that far, saying, "You can gain a lot from the demon transform. It boosts not just your senses, but your offense, defense, speed, everything all at once. But on the other hand, it consumes your magic force and exacts a heavy toll on your spirit," which makes sense. We know that it's very strong on draining Tristan's power based on what we've seen from it, but it also mentally exhausts him, which is why he not only goes out of control after a certain amount of time, but he could collapse from the usage of the power and the weight and heavy toll of it. So that makes complete sense and once more showcases the drawbacks of Tristan's power. But Meliodas shows a way for Tristan to utilize it and how he's been using it this entire fight. He says, "Use it the exact instant where and when you strike." As Meliodas is about to hit the ground, we see the darkness of his demon powers coat his fist, as we then see it explode the ground with immense force, and use it on the fist at the moment of impact. And even shows it with his legs, as we see a bit of the demon force on his legs. It said, on the legs, use it when edging back or closing in, as we see Meliodas step back through multiple different jumps, showcasing the boost in speed and appearing right next to Tristan in an instant, saying, yeah, do it with that sort of thing, which gets Tristan incredibly excited, saying how great it is. As Meliodas says, well, yeah, that's rare praise from you, I guess, which is great. He likes it when his son admires him. But Meliodas then starts to act all goofy, saying, still, a full transformation is more efficient in melee, or when you're far outgunned or outnumbered, just when you need to, sort of things. You know that? Tristan's like, sort of adjust sort of things. As Meliodas then goes on to talk about, basically, not to let his demon blood take control of him, giving an image of the Demon Lord, his dad. As he says, you have to take control of it and use it to its full potential, which I like. This full explanation on Tristan using this power is a great guidepost for him gaining the one main thing he's lacked with his power for his demon powers since the start of the series and even back in the Grudge of Edinburgh movie, and that is strong grasp and control. This will give Tristan more control and make it more precise and increase his timing by making it so he uses this power at precise moments and on precise body parts instead of his entire body all at once, unleashing it in one full go. This gives Tristan great guidelines and a roadmap to using his powers more efficiently. By boosting his powers on specific body parts or attacks in key moments and getting the timing just right, he will basically get closer and closer to mastering his full demon form, and it won't exact such a heavy toll on him. And this will let him match faster and stronger opponents, depending on the situation. Now, Meliodas is right. His full demon mode does pack more of a punch in very, full throttle situations when he's outgunned or outnumbered, and it's useful in that regard. But he does emphasize the draw on his magic power and his own spirit, the mental tax of it. And by doing it in these small bursts, allows Tristan better control, and he'll get used to this precise control of his powers. And once he slowly gets the hang of that, using full demon mode will probably be a lot easier and less taxing on him over time. Now, after this explanation, Meliodas goes on to talk to Tristan a bit more about how, well, Tristan doesn't have to be like him, as he says, I don't know how it could ever be like you. And Meliodas just says, don't be like me, just be you. You'll get more powerful just by being true to yourself. As Tristan is trying to say, don't come for me, but Meliodas is not trying to. Saying that he got stronger thanks to Elizabeth, as we got an image of him and Elizabeth in the past together at the end of Seven Deadly Sins. And he says that, well, now Tristan has someone that he cherishes now too, right? So you'll be fine. As Tristan thanks his dad, with Meliodas just laughing, as the two of them share looks, as we assume now they're going to continue with their training after this brief break and little lecture, which I like. Now, obviously bringing up the fact that Elizabeth helped Meliodas was mainly so helping him get more in touch with his emotions and his humanity and embracing that true aspect of himself, which actually made his demon powers stronger and give him much better control, because that was actually something that he had problems with in the past. And towards the end of Seven Deadly Sins, he grew with that strength and was able to keep a balance, which I appreciate it. It's really nice to see stuff like the power of, I guess, love and emotion being what is the main driving force for some characters getting stronger, while also giving his son really good step-by-step type of advice to give him better control over his abilities. And that is what a nice little training arc like this should be, and I absolutely love it. But from that point on, the rest of the chapter, we cut to Gawain and Balin over on Gawain's houseboat thing, which is either still in Camelot or somewhere near Leonis, which I believe that should be the case, I think. It's not very clear. We don't get an accurate location where Gawain is. But anyway, Gawain is casting a spell to cast Light Blitz Javelin onto Balin's sword, as she laments that spell didn't work, as Balin is confused, asking, what do you mean by that? As Gawain yells in frustration that this whole thing was a complete failure, with Balin most likely being a Sargon for the audience in this instance saying, a man with no magic skill, it seems like it was quite a feat to behold, with Gawain continuing to yell, saying, "Your praise won't do a thing," as she starts to cough, as Balin gives her some nice tea, or I guess medicine, for her to drink and calm her throat. As Gawain then begins to explain how casting spells for mages in this universe works. Says, in a spell, every word holds magic force. It's only complete and activated once every syllable is said in the right order. Attempting to shorten it puts a whole new level of magic force on each word, as she tries to show the difference between what just happened and what she's going to do now. As she then casts the full spell for Blitz Javelin, as we see the true force of her capabilities with this spell and how strong it is, as it actually singed his sword, as we see the Blitz Javelin, with Gawain saying, "That's how it usually is, that's the usual force of its power." As Gawain emphasizes that she needs to abbreviate the chance and get at least this much power, at least the base power of the spell out of it, or she'd never be able to be equal to Worldane of the Four Perils. But she needs to shorten her chance for all future fights, not just against her, as this is what she is learning to train for. As we saw in the fight against the Four Perils, Worldane was casting an insta-kill spell with barely a chance. Obviously, that was in her chaos state, but even before then, Worldane was using relatively short chance for her spells. So that is something that Gawain has to learn how to do in order for future fights to go a lot easier, and it gives Gawain more time to work on other plans and spells at the same time, because if she keeps taking time to dodge and maneuver away to cast spells, it'll make things more difficult for her in future fights, as we saw in the previous arc. But it's then, Merlin shows up telling Gawain, "You have much more to learn then from using magic." As Merlin, obviously we know Merlin and Escanor are in these mannequin magic doll forms. It's then that Merlin just says, "Blast Javelin," the name of the spell, as she unleashes a massive thunderbolt that completely melts Balin's sword into a puddle of molten metal, showcasing the level of strength between Merlin and Gawain, at least even in this form. Most likely because of, obviously, Merlin's infinity magic ability, and just her sheer mastery over magic spells itself, as this shocks Balin and Gawain. And Merlin begins to lecture her, saying, "You need a far deeper and more thorough knowledge to shorten spells while retaining their power." As Gawain's just freaking out, asking, "You didn't even chant any words. That was such a far cry from my own chants and spells." But Balin, obviously being Gawain's new bodyguard and protector, says, "Who are you monsters? Who is this monster?" As Gawain's trying to calm Balin down, saying that he's got it wrong. These are her grandparents. But Merlin tells Gawain no, as she throws down the bombshell that they aren't her grandparents. They're her real parents. Which Gawain reacts pretty normally, I guess, as she's like, "Wait, what?" As Balin is like, "Wait, I don't get it. Your grandparents are your parents?" As Gawain has no idea what's going on, thinking that this might be some kind of new riddle or something that they're trying to give to her, as she says her only parent is Kay. To her knowledge, Kay is her biological father, obviously. He did raise her. But Escanor tells her he's sorry. It's not a joke or a riddle, it's the truth. As obviously Escanor, in his own way, panics and starts saying, "But we had a good reason to leave you in the care of Kay. We had no choice, and we thought it'd be best for you. I know hearing this out of nowhere might concern you, but Kay said it was about time we told you the truth." Obviously referring to a couple of chapters back during her fight with Balin when we got to the Escanor Merlin bomb drop. But Gawain hides her face, says this, I don't want to hear this. Obviously this is upsetting her and throwing her for a loop, as it seems like her whole world is beginning to crash down from this revelation about, her parents and stuff like that. It's then that Merlin is like, "Oh, you don't want to hear this? Alright then." As that's what we're trying to tell her, "Wait, hold on, we still gotta tell her this stuff." But before anything else can come of it, someone drops in, being Dubs, saying that he heard what they were doing and decided to drop by, with Gowther's head. As Balin is obviously the only one out of the loop, is confused over Gowther and everything, as now we've amassed a bit of a crowd during this little training session. Gowther says he needed to talk, and he got the whole story from Dubs, as he then says, well, first, "Hello Merlin, and hello Escanor." as Escanor is excited to see Gowther again. But hearing Escanor and Merlin obviously catches not just Gawain, but Balin's attention, but more so Gawain. As Balin goes on to say, wait, Escanor and Merlin, aren't those two of the 7 deadly sins that were mentioned just now? As Gowther says, look, sorry, but we're not here to reminisce. That I need to be blunt. I want to know if there exists a way to fight back against chaos. And if there does, I want to know how to obtain it. As this does catch Merlin's attention, as she surprisingly says yes, as the way to fight back against chaos is indeed possible, making Gowther happy, but also zoning in on Balin and later Gawain as she is angrily pouting, as that ends the chapter. So, not only did we get a really good trading session and expansion on the demon dark energy powers that Tristan has inherited from Meliodas in a really cool way, we got to expand on how casting spells works in Four Knights of the Apocalypse, with the chance and that being the energy force that powers these words, but it being deeper than that, and Merlin and Escanor beginning to reveal their identities to Gawain, and her not wanting anything to do with it until she hears, the names Escanor and Merlin from Gowther. And not only that, we get the bomb drop that Merlin knows of a way to possibly fight back against chaos, which is something we didn't really know was truly possible outside of potentially brute forcing and killing Arthur full way. But this begs the question, what is this way to fight back against chaos? And is it truly a method that Merlin knows about? Why didn't she say anything prior? Is it because she didn't know if it was fully safe, or was it not fully tested? I don't know, but next chapter we're definitely going to dive into that, as well as most likely Gawain's real true origins and how she came about in the first place, why Escanor's soul is in that dinosaur T-Rex skeleton mannequin, and why Merlin's soul is in that mannequin, and why they hid their identities from her for so long. These slower, chilling down chapters have been great. I've been enjoying them all in different ways, but these last 2 chapters, especially this one, has been fantastic. I loved it, and I really can't wait to keep diving into this more and seeing what's going to happen in the future and the explanations we're going to get. And I'm really hyped to see what happens. But that's really all I gotta say for today. What do you guys think of this chapter? How do you feel about the revelations, the training, Gawain beginning to learn her origins, as well as the way to fight back against chaos potentially being revealed next chapter? Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in the comment section down below. And once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Shows you guys enjoy what I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And with all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.